Hello and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices. We are going to talk about something quite interesting and something we actually use on a daily basis and maybe don't give it enough thought. And that is contactless payments, something that's become a very integral part of our life over the past couple of years, especially since the COVID pandemic made us, touch things a little less than before. So with us to talk about the topic is Sujai Raina, who is Vice President and Head of Business Development of India at Visa. And as you know, Visa is one of the biggest players in the card market. And nobody better to speak about the topic than Mr. Raina. So Raina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nandagopal. Thank you for having me.
So if you could start by asking, is contactless payments, at least in India, a very post-pandemic kind of a thing, or was it there even before?
Well, to be honest, I think the pandemic has definitely given it a boost. As you called out in your opening remarks, the fact that people were more conscious of hygiene, of health concerns, not wanting to touch cash and hence the move to digital, perhaps not wanting to hand over their card to the cashier at the time of checkout. All of that has definitely played a role. And in addition, I think over the years, there are some other drivers that have also led to significant traction. So, the RBI has been very supportive in its move to put out EMV chip cards many, many years ago. They've been supportive in terms of contactless payments, in particular by allowing transactions up to 5,000 rupees without the need for a PIN. Of course, over and above, card-based contactless payments, mobile-based contactless payments have also emerged in the form of, wallets such as, Samsung Pay and Google Pay, etc. So I think a confluence of factors definitely accelerated during the pandemic. But yeah, I think contactless payments are kind of here to stay because on the back of the speed, the convenience, the fact that the payments remain as secure as typical EMV chip cards, all play a role.
If I can ask you, how big is this segment now? Of the entire transactions that are happening, what percentage would contactless payments be now?
Yeah, so I can give you the Visa data, which we have visibility to. So about 1 in 6 transactions in Visa, right, are now contactless. This has gone up by about 6x over the last 3 years. So between, say, end 2018, early 2019 to the end of 21, early 22, it's been about a 6x increase. And some of the factors I called out earlier, especially the fact that during the pandemic, there was a concern with respect to health and hygiene, I think have played a role in this significant increase.
So the other aspect of this is that the card needs to be enabled, right? So what percentage of Visa cards, for instance, have the ability to make contactless payments?
So, Nandagopal, difficult to give you a percentage, but I can tell you that there is now a directive from Visa that all our issuing clients that put out Visa cards are required to put out contactless cards, right? And the reason we are doing that is that worldwide, across markets, right, whether it is in markets such as the UK or in Australia, we've seen contactless payments, both card and mobile-based, really take off across a bunch of use cases, across a bunch of categories, and genuinely on the back of the convenience and the speed in these categories, right? So think of people lining up for grocery at checkout. You think of people lining up for cinema tickets, people lining up to get into the metro station, so transit, right? Or even lining up for fuel. Wherever there is a queue busting opportunity and speed of checkout is important, right? We find that the use of contactless payments has really, really taken off.
As you said, is there a mandate then also to have the POS machine, the POS machines also to be all contactless enabled?
Yeah, so there is a guidance from our end that POS machines should also be enabled with contactless readers, because at the end of the day, this is equally beneficial to the merchant, right? Our data shows that as a result, and this is not India-specific data, but worldwide data, that a typical merchant, let's say in a grocery or fast food outlet, can help save almost 25 minutes of productive time in a day right, at checkout for a cashier as a result of the speed with which contactless payments occur. So it's as beneficial for merchants as it is for issuers, as far as the entire ecosystem is concerned.
So it's quite common these days to be asked the question, does your card have Wi-Fi? Which has become sort of a, lingo across India. But I'm sure you guys had to work with the merchants, making them aware of this new mode, which is again very different from what they have been doing for years, right?
Absolutely. Like with any new technology or any new solution that comes to market, I think as a network, it behooves us to work with the various ecosystem participants. So while on the one hand, we work with our issuing clients to put out more contactless credentials, we are working with merchants and other ecosystem participants on the seller side to ensure that the acceptance is as widespread. There is also a consumer awareness angle to this. And once again, we work closely with our issuing partners, right, on co-marketing campaigns to call out the benefits of contactless. We've also worked with anchor merchants in the fuel space, for example, to run campaigns to drive contactless acceptance. Right, it's a journey, right, to be honest, right. But as I was saying earlier, I think our numbers have gone up by about 6 times in terms of penetration, and we're on the right track.
I happen to notice, I think, a new campaign that you guys are running on how secure this card, system is. I guess, the security angle is also something that you have to work on with the customers, right? Because especially in India, people are a little bit scared about just giving money away like that. They would like to see the security of having, them put their own PIN, even if it's a small value payment. So how does that work? And are there new security issues that sort of open up because of this new method?
Right. So from a security standpoint, contactless payments use the same security protocols that a typical EMV chip transaction follow, right? So whether you're dipping your card into a machine or whether you're tapping it or holding it near the machine, which is the mode of payment for contactless, there is no difference from a security protocol perspective. In addition, as you're aware, the RBI requires issuers now to enable enhanced card controls, right, as far as their card holders are concerned. So whether it is contactless payments or cross-border payments or e-com payments, card holders now need to activate their cards, right, to enable contactless payments. And then over and above this, we have the standard security protocols in terms of customers getting transaction alerts, customers, of course, having recourse through their issuer, the dispute mechanism that networks such as Visa put out. So sometimes what happens is that when a process is more frictionful, that acts as an indicator of security. But actually, in the case of contactless, I want to assure whoever is watching this podcast that contactless payments are as secure as any other chip and PIN transactions that they do.
So as more and more people, so I'm somebody who uses this quite a lot, right? And the next thing I want to happen is for the limit to be increased. So is that also in the works? At least is it possible for people to sort of say that, hey, I'm okay to have a higher limit for my contactless payment?
So I think the regulator has been very supportive. So the limit for non-PIN based transactions on contactless has gone up from 2,000 a few years ago to 5,000. Right. That's one improvement. In some other jurisdictions, to be honest, the limits have also evolved over a period of time. So in the UK, it's gone from 25 or 30 pounds to about 100 pounds as recently as last year. So once again, like with most things in the payments industry, this is a journey. Yeah. Customers, of course, are allowed to, set, while they can't play around with the transaction limit as such, but that's regulatorily determined, but they are allowed to set limits on what volume of transactions they want to do, right, through contactless. So that just adds to the entire, security point I was making earlier. My guess is over a period of time, following our experience in other jurisdictions, and especially as more use cases for contactless payments open up, right, there will be a calibrated increase in the 5,000 rupee limit over a period of time.
So you're also competing in a way with the other big contactless payment in the market, which is UPI, which is scan and pay. So, And I've been hearing how that is sort of, bringing down the usage of the debit card, for instance. So how are you looking at that? So you have an opportunity also to bring the debit card itself into a contactless mode on the phone, right? Like in case you're using Samsung Pay or Google Pay. So how is that working out now?
So two or three different things. So so contactless payments work equally well on credit versus debit versus prepaid, right? I think the market is large enough, frankly, for multiple payment methods to coexist, right? So you called out real-time payments in the form of UPI. Yes, that's of course increased significantly over the last few years, right? But so has the increase in credit card payments, for example. If you look at the year-on-year data, which the RBI itself publishes, there's been a close to 40% increase in credit card spends. The industry puts out almost 1 million new credit cards and 2 million new debit cards on a monthly basis, right? So as I was saying earlier, I think these different modes will coexist. From our perspective as a network, our view is that we want to give customers as varied a choice. And when I say customers, I mean our clients and their card holders, as well as merchants, as varied a choice to make payments and to be paid. And in that context, card-based payments, both contactless or with contact, I think have an equally strong road ahead as any other form of payment.
So in this space, what do you think is going to happen next, or what are you most hopeful about?
So two or three things. One is, I think going by our experience in some of the other markets around the world, like the UK, new use cases will open up. So transit is a big use case. So for example, in the UK and in London, more than half the transactions that happen on the London Underground in that transit ecosystem are contactless. And as urban mobility solutions get rolled out in a wider way in India, we expect that to come to India as well. Also, contactless payments have evolved to include not just the plastic form factor, but mobile-based payments, right? We have Samsung Pay and Google Pay based, contactless payments already live on Visa in this market today. Over a period of time, you could see some other players, for example, Apple coming to town, right? So I think these two are the biggest or the next step of evolution, new use cases and new providers, and the shift away from a plastic-based contactless mode to a mobile-based contactless mode, because we all know that the world has moved to mobile.
If I get this right, in transit, for instance, it could be just me swiping my Visa card instead of having a Metro card which has been pre-filled with money, right?
Yeah, so both options could be open. Typically, most transit ecosystems would have a closed loop or a semi-closed loop kind of arrangement where contactless payments work just as well. But a normal Visa card would also work when it comes to paying for tickets, for example, right? So that I think is a big use case. Otherwise, the standard use cases, as card issuance and card acceptance proliferates across, any queue busting categories. So fuel, grocery, quick service restaurants, healthcare, cinema, large gaming events. For example, the IPL is on, right? It's not beyond the realm of imagination to believe that people lining up to enter the stadium, right, just tap their cards or their mobiles, right, to get access to the stadium, not just in terms of paying for their tickets, but actually getting access to the stadium itself. So a bunch of these contactless type transactions, right, are on the anvil.
If I can ask you one last question. Often with a lot of technologies like this, you see that India also throws up its own very unique use cases. So have you seen any of that so far?
So as far as contactless payments, and I'm defining that as NFC-based payments, right? Near-field communication-based payments, not really. Right. I think the types of categories that dominate these contactless payments today, right, are similar to what we saw in some of the more developed markets from a payments perspective. And I think India will follow that mode. I do believe, however, that just like we kind of skipped the landline to go to mobile, right, a few years ago, we are more likely to move to mobile-based contactless payments, given that the world is mobile already, than plastic-based. So the payments technology or NFC-based technology for contactless payments is here to stay, likely to move to a mobile-based form factor as opposed to a plastic-based form factor.
Mr. Raina, thanks for being on the show. Very insightful. And again, this is giving us a lot of knowledge about something that we use every day, but in a way take for granted. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you, Nandagopal. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
So you were listening to Our Own Devices. We'll be back again next week with another guest and a lot more insight. Till then, we are everywhere you listen to your podcast.